Hello and welcome to the channel. I wanted to bring you a little group ride, a little social group ride that I did the other day. It was a morning ride. I had decided to do this particular ride because I wanted to get this kit. That's actually the only reason why I'm doing this ride, was to get the kit in it. I thought it was a nice kit and it would have been something that would have been nice for me to add to my collection, so I wanted to do it. The unfortunate part is this particular event, which is called HELP Global Social Rides. HELP is a HELP Global is a sustainable investment company specializing in solar powered projects, and they were only holding this event over 2 days. And I happened to stumble across it on a Tuesday, which was my rest day. I really didn't want to do anything on my rest day, so I decided not to do the ride on Tuesday. And the only time that I could fit it in was Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. Because I had other things going on throughout the day, and this was going to be the only time I'd be able to do the ride to get the kit. I have to do the ride and finish the ride to get these kits, so it was going to be a nice leisurely morning ride for me, because the recommended watts on it was from 2 to 2.5 watts per kg, which puts that right around at my zone 1, peaking a little bit into zone 2 pace. So if we stuck to that pace, this was just going to be a nice, light, easy ride for me. I'm coming off a rest day, so my legs are rested, and just going to be me pedaling through. But it was some interesting things that happened during the ride that I decided I wanted to upload this to YouTube to bring it to the masses. So when you look at it, you can see that we're sticking right around at about that pace, between 2 and 2.5 watts per kg. I'm going to be in the gray or the blue, which is right about where I'd expect to be at, and I was just chilling. I didn't even take the time to change my bike. I'm still on my, what I call my speed bike, when I'm doing fast, flat, more aero type races. Normally on this particular course, which is the Innsbruck in the leg snapper, I would not have a disc on the bike. I would more than likely be on my Tron bike, like most of the other guys in this. But you will notice that there's nobody riding around with a disc on, other than one guy, and you'll see him alone. But for the most part, seeing as we're just going to be cruising along, I didn't think there was really a need for me to switch bikes, so I was fine with what I was on. And for the most part, in the early stages, the group was going to stick right with that 2 to 2.5 watts per kg. Now you can see that, looking at the mini map in the top right hand corner, that the group has really strung out. And that's because what may be a zone 1 ride for me could possibly be a zone 3 ride for somebody else. So they may not even be able to ride at that upper watts per kg. So of course people are going to fall back, and then the group that's pretty much can handle that pace is going to work their way towards it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed this up until we get to the leg snapper, just so that we can take a look and see how the group, or the front group, handles that first time up the hill. Okay, we're getting ready to go into the leg snapper. Now you may have noticed that there was some green and yellow in my little graph back there. That was when we hit the elevation in the cobbles. The group kind of picked up the pace a little bit, so I had to reciprocate to make sure that I didn't lose the front group. But for the most part, I'm not going to push it up the leg snapper. You'll see a couple of guys go out up front. No plans to chase anybody or do anything. I do have to put in some red to just to kind of stick with the group. But I'm not, there was no plan on my end to chase anyone. I was just going to what I call hard pedal, and not even really hard, just kind of like a soft hard pedal to get to the top of the hill. And when you're going through the leg snapper, you do not stop pedaling until you get around that arch and turn that corner and get ready to head down. That's when you stop pedaling. I've seen a lot of people that will pedal right up to the arch, and because they're pushing it or tired, will stop pedaling right at the top of that arch. I used to do that way back when I was in VCAT and didn't know what I was doing. But you have to force yourself to pedal past that arch and around the corner. Once you turn, that's when the elevation really starts to go down, and then you can stop pedaling and let the bike just coast and roll down. I will also save my power-ups until I get to this second hump before I use them. So if I have a feather or something like that, then on that second hump, you get that, you go downhill, and then you start to crest to come back up to go over one more riser before you go down again. I will save my power up for that second riser, because I know I'm going to get another one in the sprint section that's coming up. And this was the interesting part to me. I was watching the guys do this sprint section that's coming up, and I had no plans on sprinting it. I was just going to slow myself back down to the 2 to 2.5 watts per kg. I thought we were all going to do that, but there were a couple of guys that sprinted. Now I was watching this, and I noticed that guy started sprinting, but he started sprinting after he crossed the green line. And then the other guy went shortly after him into the sprint segment. And to me, that makes absolutely no sense to start that sprint after you have already crossed that green line. You are not going to get a good sprint after that. Now you can see that guy Yamamoto. He was actually already sprinting before the start of the sprint line to catch back up to us, because we were in the front group. We had, left the rest of the group, and he had started his sprint where I don't even think he was really intending to do the sprint segment, but he was already sprinting, trying to close the gap to get back onto us. And it just so happened that by the time he got through the sprint section, it gave him the green jersey for that, because of that. So I don't think he was trying to sprint. I know the other two guys were trying to sprint because they didn't start the sprint until they were already in the sprint section. But that's a big no-no. Whenever you're going after a sprint segment, you want to start your sprint long before you get to the sprint start line, or the section start line, that green dotted line, so that you're already up to speed by the time you hit that line. If you're starting it right at the line or on the other side of the line, you got a portion of the time where you're still building power, and it's just not worth it at that point. So unless you can start that sprint long before you get to that line, it's not worth it. So that was one of the things that I was noticing. I did have to put in a little bit more power to make sure, because I didn't know if those guys were just going to keep going or not. So I put in a little bit more power just to make sure that I bridged back up to those guys that were sprinting. And then you see, once we caught up to them, we slowed right back down to 2.5 watts per kg. So we were back to chilling. So at this point, I'm going to speed this video up again to get us back to the leg snap. So here we are back in the cobbles, getting ready to head for the leg snapper. And you may have noticed that a large group of riders has caught us from behind. That's because we were chilling. We were riding at around 2.5 watts per kg. The other group had some front end guys that were pushing that group kind of hard to catch up to us, and they caught us. Not a big deal. It's a chill, it's a social ride. It's supposed to be all grouped together. But then again, we're going to hit the leg snapper, and we're probably going to lose most of these guys again on that climb, because that's how we lost a lot of them on the first time. So again, I just plan on chilling, not really going to chase anybody. But you can see one guy took off, another guy took off, and I'm just going to continue the same method as I did on the first climb, which is just a somewhat hard pedal, just to keep my pace up, kind of keep with the group. If the whole group takes off, then I probably would take off, but for the most part, I'm just going to chill. And I know the group is going to move faster going down the hill anyway. But what I think is happening is those guys that are taking off on the front, they're jersey hunting. And it's kind of probably what happened during the sprint, as these guys know that it's a social ride, so it's going to be easier for them to take off and get jerseys. So somebody's probably just trying to get that KOM jersey. And you can see, looking over on the right hand side, there are a lot of guys that got PRs on that hill. And then you'll see the one guy with the little orange dotted jersey next to his name. That's because he got that segment. He got the PR. Well, probably not a PR, but he got the best time in that segment for that KOM. So happy for him, good for him. That's not really what I'm here for. Now I do that quick downhill portion. You can see I speeded right on past a lot of people, and then I hit my feather power up. The feather power up is the best power up to have on the leg snapper, especially on this second section, because it's a downhill, and then it starts to gradually slope up before it builds up into that riser before you make that turn. And if you play that feather power up right, it kind of like rolls you past everybody if nobody else is using feathers, and you'll go right by them. What you saw, that's exactly what I did. Now you see these other guys using their power-ups before that sprint because they know they're going to get another power-up at the arch. And again, you're going to see some guys take off to try and win that sprint section. And again, you got pretty much the same thing. That one guy took off right before the green line. The other guy that took off after the green line. Both of them are total bad moves. just bad. And you'll notice that the Yamamoto guy didn't even go. That's because he's not jersey hunting. Just those two guys there are jersey hunting. And one of the guys picked up the jersey, got the green jersey over Yamamoto. Now he has the fastest time on that sprint cycle. But again, I'm just gonna chill, gonna get into my pace. You'll see that I'm back in the green again. That's just because I'm making up the distance between the two guys that took off, and I think they're just gonna slow down anyway and wait for the rest of the group. Had this been an actual race, I would be playing this much differently. But this is supposed to be a nice chill ride for me at 6 o'clock in the morning. And because of the putting down the power for the leg snapper and then putting down that little bit of power to bridge back onto the guys that are sprinting, I'm pushing a little bit more than I expected to. My heart rate is at around 150. That's much more than I had planned on doing. I had planned on just chilling, but this isn't really hurting me. They're very short efforts. They're not long efforts, and they're not really hard efforts. So I can handle that little up in power at this point in time. So again, I'm just gonna speed this up until we get back around to the leg snapper, which will be the third and last time that we'll have to go up the snapper. Okay, we're back into the cobbles, getting ready for that final time up the leg snapper. Again, this is a 45-minute event, and we only have 10 minutes left, so we'll definitely not be coming back around to this leg snapper again. So we're going to take our last shot up that climb, and you'll notice that that group of riders, that large group of riders that caught us, only a few of them managed to hang on through that last time through the leg snapper. So we'll see how many fall off on this final time up the leg snapper. And again, I have no plans on pushing hard up this hill. We'll see what guys take off to try and get that KOM up the snapper. You can see a couple of guys hitting orange numbers over on the right to try and get that jersey. Again, good for them. I'm just gonna chill and slowly make my way up the hill. And if you look at the mini map on the right, you can actually see those guys way up ahead of us, and you'll actually see them go around the corner and actually start the descent down the other side long before we get up to the top. And again, I think they're just jersey hunting, because it won't take us long for us to catch back up to them, because either they're tired and they're slowing down that much after pushing up the hill, or they're just only going after those jerseys. Once they get them, then they just back off and chill and get back down to the recommended power range, which is 2 to 2.5 watts per kg. So I'm just going to let it coast down the hill, get to the point to where I can hit my feather power up for that next ascent. And there's a spot where I try and hit it, which is that lamppost right there, but I kind of missed it a little bit and left it a little bit too late. And that's why I will still have a little bit of feather power up after I crest the top of the hill and to start going back down. So at that point, I want that feather power up to run out kind of right at the top of that hill. So normally I would hit it at that lamp post, further back lamp post, and it puts me right where I need to be. But again, this is a social ride, no pressure, it's not a race, so it doesn't really matter. But I like to practice those things because practice makes perfect. You know, you get used to doing it and then it just becomes second nature. So we're getting ready to go back into this sprint section again for the last time, and I was interested to see how these guys were going to handle this sprint. And you notice that the guy that's way out front, he went into another dig to try and get that sprint segment, and then this guy right here took off on the other side of that green line. Again, worst place to start that sprint. If you're going to do that sprint, you have to commit long before you get to the green marker. But hey, it is what it is. I'm not here to teach anybody how to do it. I'm just giving you my thoughts and my comments from somebody who specializes in the sprint on Zwift. That's my game. I'm not going to say it's my claim to fame, because I think I'm a fairly good Zwift racer. When you're winning ACAT races, then you are a good sprint racer. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But again, we catch up to those guys that have sprinted out, and we lose a couple of guys from out of the group, and eventually we're just going to ride to finish out this event. Now, in this type of event, when it's a timed event, there is no finishing banner or anything like that. There's no finishing line. It's just once the 45 minutes ends, that pretty much ends the event. So that's pretty much what we're all riding for. Everybody's just going to chill and do their 2.5 watts per kg and just back off a little bit, and we'll see how this finishes. So I'm just going to speed up until about 2 minutes before the end. So, with about 2 minutes to go, I know how this is going to end. The guys that were sprinting, they're going to want to be out front when the timer ends. So that's technically the winner, is who's ever out front or ahead when the timer ends. So I know there's going to be a couple of guys, and it's probably the guys that were doing the sprinting, trying to get the jerseys, that are going to take off towards the end to try and be out front when the timer ends. So I've decided that my legs are fresh. Let me get in at least one sprint. So I've decided that I'm going to sprint at the end of this. And normally when I'm doing a timed event and I want to be out front, that happens a lot. I want to be out front when the timer ends. I will take off with about 30 to 25 seconds to go, because I know I can burn a match for at least 20 seconds. So I've decided that I'm going to take off at about 25 seconds. And I have a draft booth, so I don't want to take off from the front. I want to take off from behind the other riders. And you can see that I'm trying my best to lollygag to stay behind those guys, just so that if they take off before me, I have that draft boost that I can use. I probably really don't need it. I'm probably going to actually burn it because I'm going to get out front fast. But yeah, as you can see, I've hit my draft boost and I'm getting ready to go into my sprint. And I was interested to see what the other guys were going to do. So boom, there I go. Watch the orange numbers over on the right. This is what fresh legs will do for you. And boom. The event's over, 45 minutes. I kind of just destroyed them on that little sprint. But I was surprised that I pushed a 21.3. A 21.3. I've only done that one other time the entire time I've been on Zwift. I know that 21, anytime I go over 21, that means a 1400 watt sprint. Now normally I don't see the numbers when I'm sprinting because my head's down. I don't see them until after the fact. And for 5 seconds I had 1356 watts. It was a lot. I was not expecting those numbers this morning at all. That was not my intent. So I click over and I click the bar and I look at my graph and there it is, 1403 watts. I didn't see it when it came up on the sprint itself because I wasn't looking. I didn't see it until after I looked at the graph and I was surprised. But so that was the whole reason why I wanted to run this, and I hope you enjoy it. Have a good one, peeps.